Well, thank you guys for coming to the DifferenceMaker seminar presentation. I think you'll really enjoy it. A couple of ground rules and things that you need to know about. All laptops and phones put away in your backpack down, okay? Let's be courteous to our speakers. And secondly, but at the end of the program, I will come back and tell you where you will sign out and what the sign out procedure is. All right, so stay in your seats when the program is done. We'll do attendance as you leave the auditorium, and hopefully you'll have a really great time. So I am going to ask Gianna to come on up, and she is going to do the introduction of the gentleman who will be speaking to us.
Our first guest speaker is an alumni of UMass Lowell. He's had 22 years of accounting experience, specifically in making accounting fun. With his extensive efforts, his firm was even named Boston Business Journal's one of their best places to work for 2019. So please help me welcome the managing partner of LGA and my father, John Geraci.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're going to hold this. So I know it's unusual that you're actually listening to an accountant today, because when you think of entrepreneurship and creativity, accountants aren't usually the top of the list. So I think Deb was just as surprised when Steve Rogers suggested that I speak. But I think it makes total sense. As we go through the slides, you'll start to understand why it makes sense that I'm here. We're a pretty conservative industry in its nature, but what we're seeing just in our industry, and obviously we touch a lot of industries, as you'll see in a few slides, is that the type of student that's going to succeed in the future is not the student of yesterday. And so I think it's great that you have the opportunity to sort of hear from us, some of us who've been in the workplace for a long time. I graduated in '97 from UMass Lowell, so I've been on that side. This was where I took my first accounting course, so I can appreciate all of what you guys are going through, and I also know it's very difficult to put away your phones, so that's hard for me too. So I work with businesses that range from essentially startups to $500 million in revenue. We don't deal with any public companies, but we do advise all sorts of businesses, their owners, the management team, and so this gives us a lot of insight as accountants into what it takes to succeed and what are the skill sets that students need today coming into the workforce to be successful. We obviously, through that process, work with businesses who thrive and businesses who don't succeed. And I think the skills that you're learning through this process and through the programs here are going to help you be better advisors along your paths and make sure that you're on the successful end of this, not that failure is a bad thing either. So I'm not going to go through these. These are just a sample of the industries that we work with. So again, as you can see, it's pretty diverse. So we've seen a lot of different business owners, a lot of different industries with various challenges. Some are the same, some are different. And so it's sort of all of this information, all of this experience is what sort of lends itself to what we're going to talk about today. So the fact is that the world's changing rapidly around us. The skills that it took when I got out of school, back in '97, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, was very different. Back in '97, it was all about work ethic. It was about what you could personally bring from an attitude perspective. And while those things remain, it's changing. The skill sets are changing. You talk about what's happening with technology. For example, when somebody graduated in '97 in accounting and entered the workforce, and you think about tax filing as an example, we had people that just hard entered numbers into a return, right? So you didn't necessarily question, you didn't have to know a lot of things, you didn't even really have to be super technical. You just had to have a good work ethic, the ability to retain information, and we trained you from the ground up. Well, now when you think about what somebody deals with coming into our profession today, just using that tax example, with technology, we actually have software. So when we get tax forms, you get your W-2s, which you all probably have received a W-2 in your life. or a 1099, we actually just drop it into a scanner. We put cover sheets on it, and when we scan all those original source documents, they're actually auto-fed into the tax return. So why is this relevant to you? Because the skills that you're going to need to succeed are much different than back in 1997. Because you're not going to actually need to enter a return. You're not going to need to enter data. And I'm using this as an accounting analogy. I know that there are a lot of non-accounting majors here, but this is just as relevant. The pace of the change with technology is moving so quickly. The skills that you're going to need to have go beyond just the technical skill set. We talk about borderless economies. Most of our clients, we're a relatively small CPA firm in the grand scheme of things, but many of our clients are still doing business internationally. So having the ability to understand different businesses, different economies, how to do business in those foreign jurisdictions, that's all going to be relevant, whereas when I graduated, it just wasn't relevant to us. I talked about the evolving skill sets, the shift in the characteristics, the traits, how work ethic is not as prevalent as it used to be. We obviously still want people to work really hard, but we actually want people who ask why. And it's funny, back when I graduated, if you asked why, you were a problem child, right? And today, people who don't ask why are really the people that start to concern us, because we understand we're much more open as a workforce. We're much more open to people challenging the status quo. And so what you should be learning through this process, and I believe you're all freshmen, so you still have a number of years to make sure you're honing these skills, but what you need to be developing are skills that are far different from just your core technical skills. Fixing this is a term. We had a leadership retreat at our firm in November, and we talked about this concept of fixedness. And when you think of fixedness, one example that you can use is, and I know you're all relatively young, but back in the day there was this thing called Blockbuster, right? And Blockbuster was a videotape store that families went to and people went to on a Friday night and a Saturday night, and they walked into the movie store and they picked a movie off the counter, and that's what they went and rented for the night. There was no concept of streaming. There was no concept of when Netflix was sending discs to your house. And when Blockbuster had the opportunity to pursue some of these, they had fixedness. They said there is no way that people aren't going to want to come to a store. I mean, this is part of the experience, is to come to the store, to pick out the movie, almost to kind of make it a competition, whether or not you could get to the store and get the new release before somebody else took it. And so they had fixedness, right? They didn't see that there was something else that was really going to significantly impact their business. And as you should all know, because you don't see their buildings around anymore, there is no Blockbuster. And so who's replaced Blockbuster? Netflix. So fixedness is an extremely important concept for you all to realize, that you can take nothing for granted. Assume nothing. When you look at anything, don't assume that that's the absolute only way or best way to do something, because that thinking has killed a lot of businesses. Apple has killed, when you think about the original way that we used to listen to portable music, it was on a Walkman. It was a thing that you put on your hip, and it had either a tape, and then it evolved to a CD, and then we went to the iPod, now it's all on your phone. Apple put Sony's Walkman business out of business. So, and why did that happen? Fixedness. If you think about Kodak had the Instamatic cameras. And I don't know if you guys all follow this, but what do we use now for our cameras? They're what? Digital? Do you know who invented the digital camera? It was Kodak. Yet Kodak's not around, right? So why did it happen? Because Kodak, back in the day, they didn't want to, they sold a lot of film. And so they knew that there was this technology, they knew that there was this digital technology to capture images, but they actually resisted adopting it because they were focused on protecting their film industry and the film business. And now, everything is digital, and they lost their position. They were the leader in camera and camera equipment and supplies, and now they don't exist anymore. So as you sort of go through the next few years in school, please remember that concept, remember these examples. There's a ton of these examples, but they all are super relevant to what's happening. And the reality is, the pace of change then still was extremely slow compared to the pace of change that you're all going to go through in the next couple of decades. So has anybody seen the movie The Accountant? Amazing movie. If you're an accountant, you think it's an amazing movie. So I kind of think of myself as a serial killer on the side, sort of killer for hire. So needless to say, I really, could relate to this movie. But I'm just going to show a clip, and what this clip is focused on is just think about it. He starts with a general ledger, so that's just basically a recap of an accounting system's data. And what you should be learning from this, what you should be taking away from this is it's not the information, it's what you do with the information. Any thoughts on what that all means? So if you think about it, for so many years it's been about compiling the data, right? It was what went into the general ledger in this example. But the future is not going to be about the historical accumulation of information anymore, because through technology, so much of that is going to be automated. And so what I thought this really did a great job of depicting is the fact that it's what you do with the information, how you interpret it, how you analyze it, how you think about it. And in this particular example, he was looking for a fraud. So he was going through general ledgers, looking for patterns in the data in order to identify where a fraud may have occurred, what the amount may be. And while there will be a lot of technology that will even do some of what he was doing there, what humans cannot be replaced, where they cannot be replaced, is in communication, interpretation. And so the skills that you're going to need to make sure that you're honing over these next 4 years are just that. They need to be critical thinking skills. They need to be sort of looking at that clip and understanding that it's the way you look at data, the way you challenge data, looking for patterns that other people haven't necessarily looked for. Because that's really where the opportunities are going to lie. And it's not just for accountants, it's going to be for all industries. Anyone who's coming out in the world where there's so much technology around us, it's going to be such an evolving skill set. You think about accountants. A lot of accountants became accountants because we're conservative. Right, David? We're conservative. He's an accountant. He's my favorite. My daughter's not an accountant, so she's no longer my favorite. So we're conservative. We like to just do things sort of inside the box, so to speak. We don't see a lot of color. Everything to us is very black and white. And that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work any longer. So as I've already talked about, there needs to be some of these other skills. There needs to be that intellectual curiosity. We, just as an experiment, because I like to hire people from unusual places, I most recently hired one of our tax staff from the bar that I go to. And he's a bartender. And I was talking to him over the course of years. I've gotten to know him. And he always did such a great job relating. So he had great relationship skills. He could learn about me, understand me, ask questions, make me feel comfortable going there. Well, that's a skill that translates into all facets of business. You have to be able to relate to humans. Especially the more that there's technology that gets thrown into what we do. Again, how are you going to relate to the other humans now that you have systems to process all of this data for us? Because you no longer can just hide behind the fact that you're going to process data. You're going to have to take that data, interpret it, and go talk to somebody about it. So what else did he possess? He seemed to possess a passion for what he was doing. He was a bartender, but he was a passionate bartender. He was very good at it. He took pride in his work. He took pride in the different drinks that he would come up with. So finally I was like, you know what? Matt, have you ever thought about doing anything else? And he's like, well, I started school, I stopped. I said, you want to come try to do a tax internship at our firm? So why? How could he do that? He doesn't even have a business degree, let alone an accounting degree. But I knew he could do it, and I knew he could succeed because the skills that are needed and required to succeed are evolving. And so you can't underestimate all of these skills that you're seeing and the things that I've already talked about as it relates to the thought process. And he's been at our firm about a month, and I asked his supervisor, I said, how's Matt doing? He said, I wish I could clone him. He said he's just got a thirst for knowledge, he's genuinely curious, he always comes in, he follows up. He said he's green, he's never taken an accounting course, he doesn't know debits and credits, makes it hard to give him an entity tax return. He's like, but he retains what we give him, and he's constantly asking great questions, and I wish that everybody in our firm did the same thing. So again, it's absolutely vital that you all understand just how much the world is changing around you. So what I thought I would kind of end with is just highlighting a few clients. Now, I didn't put the names up, but I have no problem talking about them. You guys can Google them. So this is Gupta Media. This was an amazing company. Been a client for about 10 years. And he was a gentleman that he had worked in the past for another company, and he saw an opportunity, right? And you talk about what the difference makers are going to talk about soon. It's about, looking for opportunities. So he saw that in the music industry, that people weren't necessarily doing a good job targeting when you would see an ad. You got to remember, he's been in business for probably 15 years, so this still does go back a little ways. So he started questioning, how could we do it better? How could we actually look at the data that we can extract from computers and people that are logging on to different sites? How could we look at their cookies, look at all the things that make it relevant to understand what ad we should be putting in front of them? And he said that wasn't enough. How could he actually also do a better job reporting back to his customers on the success of his campaigns? So, for example, Sony will give him $400,000 and say, Beyonce's releasing a new album, go promote it. And it's his company that has to decide, when you're clicking on different websites, which ads pop up. And he's able to actually tell Sony, look, this is how many click-throughs we have, this is how many purchases you received, this is how many purchases through iTunes. And he's built a multi-million-dollar business around it. And it's all because he saw an opportunity, he challenged it. And I always tell everyone inside my firm and outside my firm, he's my favorite client because there is no such thing as no. He does not accept no for an answer. And he's a millionaire because of it. So when you ask him a question, or if he asks his team a question, it's not no, it's how. He just wants to know how. How can we do it? And it could be that the challenges to do it are so significant that he makes a decision not to invest in it, but he still insists that you get to the answer, because there's an answer for everything. And some of them may be not worth, from a cost-benefit standpoint, may not be worth pursuing, but he still requires his team to really, really think about it and try to solve the problem, even though most people would just shrug their shoulders and say there is no solution. Not all entrepreneurs, not all great business people have to do complex businesses. So here's a case of Wamisit Entertainment, Wamisit Lanes. Does anybody know Wamisit Lanes in Tewksbury? So it's a pretty sizable entertainment facility. It has bowling, it has golf simulators, it has outdoor areas, it has an arcade, it has a restaurant, bar. And this was born out of the idea of these guys, the father, son, dad liked bowling. He said, geez, there's no really great facilities around here. He's like, I'd really like to put in a great facility. So he talked to Brunswick, and he kind of started exploring it. And the cost to build this facility was, huge. It was so significant. And he had a lot of naysayers, right? He met with a lot of banks. A lot of banks said, no, not doing it. And he did the feasibility study with Brunswick, and it seemed like it had a really high chance of being successful. The demographics supported what he wanted to do. So for anyone who knows it, it's now a state-of-the-art facility. It's being copied by other entrepreneurs around the country. He actually advises other entrepreneurs. He started another offshoot business down the street, and he's exploring where to put other facilities around Massachusetts and New England. So these are welders. They started off as welders. It's Tewksbury Welding was the original business. So you don't even have to be the super educated person. You have to see an opportunity, challenge it, explore it, and make something of it. And that's what these guys have done, which is why I thought they made such a great example. This last one I just learned about in November. It was a client that they printed planners, Scholastic planners, and they really sold them to teachers predominantly. So they were just a sleepy business that were doing this for years, and they ended up acquiring a business in New Hampshire. And they had some excess product that they really didn't need. And so he said, why don't you throw it up on Amazon, see what we do. So he said, we threw it up on Amazon. The first year we sold $100,000 worth. He was like, holy shit, I wasn't expecting that. So he's like, put more product up on Amazon. So the next year they sold $500,000 on Amazon. And he said, I think we have something here. So then he started looking, they really started spending time understanding Amazon and understanding the ratings and all the different products that were out there. So they decided that they were going to start an additional business in addition to the planning business that they already have. Obviously, one, they started putting all the planners up on Amazon, but then they started modifying existing products. So it sounds silly, but they might look at a toilet paper holder and they might say, geez, I think the problem with toilet paper holders is that they do X. And so they would go study the price point of toilet paper holders and figure out where there was an opportunity within a price band where somebody who wanted something that was a better quality than the lower quality products, but still something that was affordable, and they would design something that was better, put it up, and today they do 30 million, and it's only been 5 years. So they've gone from 5 million to 30 million in 5 years, doing something that's similar to some extent with the planning business, but completely different in other respects because the products that they have, and I just learned about this in November. I mean, they have calendars, they have toilet paper holders, they have picture frames, they have jewelry holders. So, I mean, literally their products cover a vast array of different things that are not interconnected. So, again, a great example of a business that was constantly looking for opportunity, and it wasn't even necessarily in their vertical space, but it just made sense based on what they were seeing. So, you have to have an open mind. You have to really have a mind of curiosity. There's an expression, oh, you got to think outside the box. The reality is there is no box anymore. So that expression really doesn't work anymore. The reality is you just need to think globally, think big. Be the Gogi Gupta of your life. Constantly challenge why. Now you have to challenge why, by the way, in a respectful way. You have to recognize how things got to where they are. But the future of our country and business is going to be dependent on students like you who really have developed an analytical mindset, a curious mindset, and a mindset that's looking to solve things. And not just do something, but solve something, create something. And you're going to have to think big. Because with all of the technology that's coming, it's not even enough for you to understand the technology that's out there today. Because the reality is, by the time you get out of school, it's probably going to be even different again. It's changing that quick. We know when it comes to our business as accountants, we have blockchain, we have IBM's Watson. I mean, IBM's Watson literally does audits now for the Big Four. They just feed all the information into it, and a computer does the lion's share of the audit. And so that theoretically obsoletes a lot of entry-level accountants. But it doesn't obsolete those who know how to look at the data, the outputs from the system, interpret it, analyze it, and communicate it. And so that's really where you guys need to be when you graduate in 4 years. That's where you're going to have to be. That's where your mindset's going to have to be for you to be successful. So that's all I have for you guys. Any questions?
What's the biggest challenge you've seen in the last 2 years?
She asked what the biggest challenge we've seen in the last 2 years, you said, in the field? It's really just the evolving mindset. We just had a firm day at our firm, and we had somebody come in and speak to us. And this was a gentleman that grew up in a really impoverished area, had a very difficult life, and he's now gone on to become a 2-time CEO. His company, actually in Austin, Texas, was the best place to work in the country. And we had him come speak to our team because mindset is really what people have to start to evolve. And we all get stuck, we get fixed. I talked about the concept of fixedness. And it takes a lot to get out of your comfort zone. It takes a lot to evolve your thinking. It takes a lot to leave that place that you think you should be staying in naturally. And so I would say that's the biggest challenge for all of us is to realize that things are changing and things are changing fast. And if you can't adapt a more flexible mindset, you're going to get lost in the process. And I've been preaching to my team for 3 years. We meet off-site for 8 hours every year, plus we have follow-up meetings. And every year I say, all of your jobs are going to be obsoleted if you don't evolve. And it's not a threat, it's just a promise, it's just a reality. Because technology is going to change the way that every one of us does business. And how we're doing it today is going to be different 3 years, and it's going to be different 5 years. To think that we can drop papers into a scanner and that a return can be 80% complete for most traditional basic individual tax returns, it's staggering. I mean, I don't think we necessarily recognize it because we're living through it and we just start to take it for granted. But that's a lot of change, and that's a lot of change that came fast. So I think mindset's the number one thing. Anything else? All right, I know you guys have a great panel coming up, so I'll turn it over to them. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the DifferenceMaker panel. Can y'all hear me okay? Yeah? Good. So my name is Holly Butler. I'm the director of the DifferenceMaker program here at UMass Lowell. I'm also an adjunct in the UMass School of Business, so I do teach some of the DifferenceMaker freshman seminars that you're all a part of. So thank you for being here today. And John, our guest speaker before this, did an excellent job about talking about how you all have to learn creative problem-solving skills, how you have to be able to define opportunities, take advantage of those opportunities, and be able to build up skills to think differently no matter what you end up doing. So that's what DifferenceMaker is here to help you with at UMass Lowell, and that's why we actually have this course within the business school. So as you know, DifferenceMaker is a campus-wide entrepreneurship program, and we engage students across campus in creative problem-solving, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So if any of you have ideas you want to pursue, or you see problems that you want to solve, you come to DifferenceMaker, and then we actually give you resources to help you solve those problems and pursue those ideas. So today we have 3 students who actually saw problems and had ideas that they wanted to pursue, so they entered DifferenceMaker. And then since entering DifferenceMaker, they've won some funding, and they've been working with us to actually implement their ideas and to move them forward. So I'm going to introduce our panelists today. We have Allison Michelle. So she's from Team Revive. She won $2,000 from DifferenceMaker last year, and she is in the Francis College of Engineering. And we have Edward Moranti. So he won the top prize, the Risk Campus-wide DifferenceMaker, last year, $6,000. He was in the College of Education. Now he's in Fine Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. And Michelle Melou is from Ambulatory Innovation. She also won last year $2,000, and she is up of her College of Health Sciences. So thank you all for being here today. Allison, I'm going to start with you. Can you just talk a bit about your project Revive and why you and your team decided to start working on that project and that solution?
So Revive is basically a medical device that is aimed at aiding in harm reduction in the opioid epidemic. It's a wearable device that is about the size of a smartwatch or something like that, that uses continuous biomarker sensing of pulse oximetry and optical heart rate monitoring to give a dose of naloxone to a person who's experiencing an opioid overdose. So I have 2 other partners on my team, and one of them is a paramedic who experienced firsthand a lot of people that unfortunately they couldn't get to in time and lost their fight to addiction, of opioid addiction. And all of us in the team have been personally affected by the loss of somebody, whether directly or indirectly, to an opioid overdose. So we felt very strongly about finding a solution for this because we do have the technology to save these people's lives, yet we're still losing so many. About 130 people die every day just in America alone, and we know that it's getting worse from year to year, and this is also a problem that's already persisted for decades. So we feel very strongly about bringing this to fruition, and we definitely have a passion for it, and I think that's what drew us to DifferenceMaker and to continue this.
Thank you. Such a good idea and a big problem. So why did you decide to get involved in DifferenceMaker?
Yeah, so we had heard about DifferenceMaker around campus. We never really thought we would be a part of it, but since it provided a great opportunity for funding, it also provides you the ability to connect with mentors who are in your relative business that can provide help to you in any way that you need it. It also provides opportunity for further funding, and in our particular case, we won $5,000 in legal services as well. So we've been working with one of the best patent attorneys in Massachusetts, Chris McKenna at Foley & Lardner, and that's definitely been a blessing to us and to help us to pursue this because we're going to need a lot of legal and IP protection.
Excellent, thank you. And what are some of your achievements to date? So you won in 2019, so this last year, what have you done with your project?
So DifferenceMaker also helped present us with an opportunity called the Spark program, in which we got to work with some mentors from MIT as well. And that is a grant program where we want some more money for funding. I think that's one of our biggest accomplishments. And then also we're continuing on with that program now to continue to refine our business model canvas, to discover more customer segments, and to receive a much greater amount of funding that we haven't really gotten yet. I would also say we're incorporating very soon as a C Corp, and so that's going to be a big accomplishment for us.
Excellent, thank you so much for sharing, Allison. And Edward, I'm going to move on to you. So can you please talk a bit about your project Benjiball and why you and your co-founder Ben started that project?
Yeah, so Benjiball is just a more inclusive version of baseball, which started back in 2014 when my partner Benjamin can't be here right now, watching a few kids play baseball on the beach, and they're really struggling that they couldn't ball the ball that well and they weren't able to hit it. So we wanted to make it a more accessible version, just easier to play on the beach initially. So for that, the ball itself, which I don't have right now, became 10-sided, so no matter how it landed, each outcome of the at-bat would be there, so a strike or home run, or that would be right there, so it'd be easier for them to know what their outcome was. And further along, we decided to make it more inclusive for everyone, including kids with disabilities, because even though it had a 10-sided ball, it still had the problem where they weren't able to hit it as well. So that's where the design of the bat itself came in, where we decided to expand the barrel to be more akin to a cricket bat, and the handle to be one of the still traditional baseball bat, just so it's still easier for them to hold. That way the in area is still wide enough for them to hit. And that's just how baseball started.
Thank you. So you have a background in education. So can you talk a bit about your education skills and how that has helped you in moving Benjiball forward?
So when I was an education major, it was initially elementary education and moderate disabilities, and because Benjamin wanted to be more inclusive to children with disabilities as well, he brought me along just to help with the inclusivity of it, because even though many kids with disabilities could be benefit from this, he still didn't know the area of how he could include it with those kids, especially in schools, because that's where we feel that the children are most left out, because they will be able to play baseball with the other children as much. So my background just comes in with knowledge of moderate disabilities, just to help incorporate it into their play a little easier.
Excellent. And Ben's a business student, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so that's something else that DifferenceMaker helps you with. So if you do have an idea and you need a student from another major, we can help you build up that team. So Ben kind of oversees the business aspects, and then Edward has great education background, great skills that he can assist with the project. So Edward, can you talk a little bit about what you and Ben have accomplished since winning the Risk and Select DifferenceMaker Award in 2019?
After we won, we still work kind of pending. Right now we're a lot further down the line, so hopefully we are looking to finally get our patent this year. Originally we've been talking with many manufacturers back and forth, where we have found a manufacturer in Andover, and we recently got a quote from them. So we're looking forward with them just to produce both the bat and the ball in one facility. And with that, we're looking to go ahead and get both bat and ball fully produced by November or December this year, just so we can have it in stores and in schools. We are also in talks with another manufacturer to develop a package for Benjiball itself, as we want it to be displayed in stores in a way where children and parents can fully hold, just to understand the weight and the complexities of Benjiball itself, being super disastrous for the environment.
Excellent, very exciting. Thank you. And Michelle, so you're part of Ambulatory Innovations, and you're going to talk a bit about your project and product, CatMat. So please just explain it and what sparked that solution to the specific problem that you both saw.
Sure. So, Ambulatory Innovations is a company that seeks to create technology that will help patients in physical therapy settings get back to their prior functioning and prior lifestyles. So the current product that we're actually working on, and it was the kind of everything that started with DifferenceMaker and how we got into this whole experience, is the CAP mat. So CAP mat stands for Community Ambulation Tool Mat. So what that means is we're basically going to use this mat to help patients return to being able to walk outdoors, being able to walk on the sidewalk safely, being able to walk on the sand, basically getting back to their activities that they were able to do before but haven't been able to since maybe having a knee surgery, hip replacement, something like that. Currently, in the United States alone, there are over 35 million people that have troubles with walking, and they're really distraught, and physical therapists right now kind of just see it as, well, we can do what we can, and then we'll just try our best. But we feel like there was a need for a product that could actually help people get back to walking outside. And the best way to do that is to create a mat that can simulate terrains that are found outdoors. So that's currently what we're working on.
That's awesome. And the prototype is really cool too. They began that in testing and all that good stuff. So after winning funding, you were linked to some mentors through DifferenceMaker. Can you talk about how those mentors have helped you move your business forward?
Yeah, sure. So we have two mentors right now, Steve Geiser and Pete Ferguson. And these two advisors and mentors, they basically meet up with us every other month or so, and we kind of talk to them about what we've been doing. And currently, they're really helping us with finding people to help us decide if our product really is meant to be a medical device, because if so, then we have to go through the FDA and get a whole bunch of different, we have to go through a whole lot more testing with our product. But Peter is going to be helping us with that, and then Steve has also been helping us with finding incubation services, basically places where we can help networking and increasing our, basically getting to know our network and meeting people like hospitals and things like that. He's been helping us a lot with that.
So you've accomplished a lot since entering DifferenceMaker, including winning the Boston Beantown Throwdown event. So can you just talk about your experiences with that event and kind of who you were pitching up against and what you won? So just kind of a synopsis of that.
So Beantown Throwdown this past year, it was a very exciting experience. We got to compete against Harvard, Boston University, Northeastern, a whole bunch of Ivy League elite universities. And we came in with our passion and our determination and our product, and we ended up winning first place. So it was very exciting. We just feel like it's something that is really going to help people in the long run, so we were just grateful for that opportunity. The prizes that we won, they weren't necessarily funding prizes, but they were a lot of networking prizes. So we actually had a few sessions with an incubation service, so they're helping us find a place to actually kind of work, a space to work in, like the iHub, iMassel, places like that. And then we also got an award with working with someone who is in a network agency, and he's helping us reach out to places so that we can help develop our website, help find materials for our mat, because that's kind of where we're at right now. We need to find materials to create this mat and make it perfect. And then some other things we won was a prize to visit a innovation hub in Montreal. So that's very exciting. We're going to meet with people in the industry in Montreal, basically have some international networking experience, and prizes like luncheons so that we're meeting with lawyers and people who will help us with patenting and things like that.
Excellent, and congratulations again on winning that prize. So I'm going to open up one last question to the three of you, and then audience questions. So if you think you might have a question, start thinking about that now. So any of you can pick this question up. What advice do you have for students who may be interested in joining DifferenceMaker?
So I guess my advice would be, even if you're not expecting it right now or you feel intimidated by the idea of entering a competition, it's a pretty long process and there's so much support behind it that you have a lot of time to really develop your idea and refine it and even change it if it's not what you anticipated that it would be, or if it doesn't have the potential that you thought it would be. So I would say there's really no downsides just to going in and doing it. Also, even if you don't win a prize, just being a part of the Difference Maker and being able to put that on your resume really is a way to differentiate yourself when you go into the workforce after you graduate.
Yeah. So I would say just if you have any idea at all, just go for it. Even if you on your own don't have a team, you don't really have anyone who is like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. If you're just kind of on your own, there is something that Difference Maker does called Team Maker. It's a website that you can find on the Difference Maker website, and basically you can find people who have ideas as well, who might be willing to work with you, or people who don't have ideas but are really interested in being part of something big like this. And you can find people, find engineers, find business majors, find physical therapists, find anyone who's willing to kind of take it to the next step and try to create something new. So just be open-minded and go for it.
Edward, did you want to add anything?
I mean, you can also just email Holly and Oz. They've been really helpful, and they're both very responsive to their emails. As a person before these events, I always bother Holly with, oh, where is this going to happen, or how much is going to be this? And she's always responds to all of them. So she's also very helpful. With her and Ha are very dedicated to the success of Difference Maker. So I would recommend just emailing them directly too, if that is what you're interested in.
Thank you for that. Yes, we're always here to help, and I do want to introduce my colleague, Ha Fo. So she's the Difference Maker Program Manager up there. Difference Maker seminar courses as well. So I want to thank our panelists, but I do want to take a couple of minutes and open it up to audience Q&A. So please raise your hand. Does anyone have a question? Yes, up here.
Obviously, you guys have seen a lot of success so far, and you're just in the process of doing more to be able to reach your goals. But from the moment you decided this is the idea you want to pursue, now, it's like implementing it, it's like really happening. What would you say has been like the biggest challenge?
So the question is, what has been the biggest challenge they have faced from starting their project to now a year later as far as implementation and research? So if any of you want to answer, go for it.
So I think a huge challenge for me and my co-founders was that we're all chemical engineers. And so we didn't really have anyone with a business background or from any other diverse background to contribute to our team. So when we did start Difference Maker and you start to develop your business model and actually how you're going to make money from this, or what your revenue streams are going to be, those sort of things, it's difficult for us to figure out what we didn't know or how to figure out what we didn't know and how we need to prepare ourselves. But by throwing ourselves into it and doing a lot of reading and research on our own, we were able to catch up to where I believe we need to be. But that was definitely a struggle or a hurdle for us to overcome, was to figure out what we don't know and what areas we're lacking in and how to compensate for that.
Anyone else want to add anything?
One of the biggest challenges for me at first when we started was neither one of us had a background in plastics, and we both want this to 3D printed. So just with that, we had to struggle a bit. We had a previous partner, Gavin, who had a background in plastic engineering before his transfer. So after we left, we texted him back and forth trying to get some information, but by that point, we still struggled with a lot of what we're supposed to do with this, because we were going back and forth to the bachelor's. And it's also a program that high-density polyurethane was. The same material that Nerf balls made us, the same soft material. And so I started this project. I had no idea of that. Because Ben has a background in business, I have a background in education. Neither one of us really could see the two fruition all the help that we had along the way. So it's just finding all those connections. And another challenge that we really had was just with manufacturing. Because while we did have the ideas and we had all the resources available, especially with all the help of Difference Maker, it's just a challenge if we're getting manufacturers to go through with it. There's one manufacturer a few months ago where we were really happy with it, but we're going to go through it. Last minute they turned around and said, oh no, we can't help you anymore. So we had to start from step one again, just talking to every manufacturer, signing all the NDAs again.
I think so. Our biggest challenge has been a combination of both of theirs. So it was just me and my co-founder Katie, and we're both physical therapy majors, so we have no idea about what materials could simulate grass or gravel. We don't know anything like that. So our big thing was we need to find engineers, and we didn't find them until almost a year later. So just be hopeful that you'll find someone, because we found someone who was passionate about it. Now we have a good team of 2 engineers and 2 physical therapists, and now we are trying to take a step further and actually doing data analysis and testing of our prototype system.
Thank you for the question. And anyone who asks a question gets a DifferenceMaker drawstring badge too, so a little incentive. Yes, let's hear it. Yes, your question?
I was wondering, how about participating in the DifferenceMaker interfered with your academics, both your idea and your team?
So the DifferenceMaker interfere with your academic work at all? How do you balance doing your DifferenceMaker project in school?
So for me and Katie, we are in a graduate school program right now, and we were currently in our most difficult year that we had to go through. We had 8 different classes per semester. It was very grueling, but we found the time to work on it, and if you're passionate and if it's kind of a fun pastime for you, then anything is possible. We got great grades, we won competitions, so don't let your academics hold you back from anything like this. Of course, academics come first, and if it becomes overwhelming, then you should choose your grades over this, but if it seems like something you can handle, go for it.
I would also agree with her to not steer away from doing DifferenceMaker just because you're afraid it's going to interfere with your academics. Of course, everything that you add into your life is going to have to come with a sacrifice in another area of your life, but that doesn't have to be academics. You might have to sacrifice some hours of sleep or being able to go out and have a social life sometimes. I know that I definitely had to do that. I had no social life at all while I was doing this, but it's worth it in the long run, I would say, and I wouldn't change anything that I've done.
So it's definitely challenging to balance both your career and your academic life, where you can find that nice balance between both of them. And like I said, if you're passionate about it, you're going to find time to you're going to find that you're going to make time for it. Like Benjamin himself a few weeks ago had to drive all the way to Maine and then back and still go to class the same day. So if you're passionate about it, you're going to wake up early, just going to dedicate some time to basis. And if you have a partner as well, they can share some workload, which is why we did that would be on with all.
Good question. Other questions? Couple more. Yes, please talk very loudly. Yep, you in the red shirt and hat.
So I have a question specific for Allison.
For Allison.
And you can drop the answer if it's two, I guess, choose it. But I was wondering, I know for your product, would you just sell, I guess, your market to addicts, or would it also include like hospitals, like rehab centers?
So initially, we're looking to enter the market at inpatient care facilities. So his question was basically like, what markets are we looking to enter and where we're planning to sell our product? So, like I said,
Everybody please listen up. Don't speak when Allison's speaking. Thank you.
So like I said, we're looking to enter the market initially at inpatient care facilities, detox facilities, these sorts of things, because we want to increase our chances of adoption and efficacy of our device. So our device has to be worn 24/7 by the user or the end wearer of this device. So we're looking to initially target high-functioning addicts, maybe somebody that's only overdosed once or twice, that still has a support system at home to ensure that they are complying with the things that are required for our device to be as efficient as possible.
Good, that was a really good question. Other questions? One last question? Anyone with one last question? Yes, over here.
How important is the business model compared to like product itself? Like in their agreement?
Yeah, so I think he's asking how important is the business model as compared to the actual product. So I can say in our experience, that's been a huge question for us. Initially, our assumptions were that we had to have a product before we could work on our business or before we could get investors or pitch to people, but that's not necessarily the case. We are still working on our patent, which we hope to have submitted soon. So yeah, you do have to have a developed idea of your product, but the business model and making sure you have a really robust business model, I might say even is more important on the front end of things, because if you want investors or if you want to further your idea, you have to show, okay, this can make money, here's potentially who we're going to market to, and then you can tailor your design to best fit those customers' needs of your business model.
And regarding the business model, DifferenceMaker, we offer a workshop series, we offer a summer boot camp where we help students actually define and revise their business models. So we give a lot of support as far as the business model canvas and thinking all of those different pieces through, as well as linking you up to mentors and advisors. So we're almost at 5 o'clock here, so I just want to close with, if you do have an idea, if you see some type of problem you want to solve, please come to DifferenceMaker and speak to us. Our $50,000 idea challenge application closes next week on the 12th. Quiet down, please. Couple more announcements and you'll be out of here. So if you have an idea or you see a problem you want to solve, please come to DifferenceMaker. We have a $50,000 idea challenge coming up. The application closes next week on February 12th. So you can win a portion of $50,000 and additional $15,000 in legal service prizes as well. So all 3 of these students took that leap, they applied with their ideas, they won some funding, and now here they are today. And you have to do this for your class project anyways. You kind of do a mini DifferenceMaker project within your class. So if you're interested in actually applying it to the program and seeing if you can get funding, I would highly recommend that. So if you have any questions, we will be here a little bit afterwards. And I think Professor Finch has a few closing remarks. But first, let's give a big round of applause to
section number. So if you don't know your section number, sit there until you can get it on your phone and look it up. Second, stop, wait just a minute. This is how we're going to go out. So at the back, in the top here on this side are my students, Professor Finch, and it's numeric from 201, section 201, up to 401. It's going to go the same thing left to right across the way. In the center, in the back table, you're with Holly Butler or Hot Bo. You will sign out on one of the sheets on that table. And on the far left side, we have Kevin Millette, David Ballero, and Robert Santos. Again, know your section number. Do not go up until you know what sheet you're going to sign.